Hello, everybody. We are just doing a little bit of preamble while we're setting up here. Hope everyone is well. Rumble and Drew in the house already. Appreciate you guys. And
Uh, I always love having an opportunity to be schooled by Drew when I'm on air. It's fun. Bless him.
what up, Rumble?
What up, Rumble? Hope you're doing well, buddy.
Oh, so when's all your work happening at home? That sounds like it's going to be a lot of upheaval where you are.
I don't know. I'm just waiting for emails to come through at the minute, so I'm getting a water meter straight away, and then whatever. But winter's coming, so I'm glad this new window's coming because don't have a lot of coverage on the old head here, so it can get cold pretty quick. Um, Let me just check these links again. So when it does the Eagles at Lions.
Oh, so we
Oh,
we signed another player today, didn't we? And I haven't put it in the doc.
oh, he's got a rate name. I love it. What the hell is it again? It's Pierce Barker. I'm calling him Pierce Barker, but I don't know if it's right or not. But I love like that Barker. It just sounds, it just comes off the tongue really good. Or it's not really the tongue, it's the lips, I guess. Eloquent Barker with your tongue.
Dan Pask subscribed to Tier 1 for his 6th straight month. Thanks, Dan. He says, hi, guys. Cheers for getting us through the off-season. Let's go, Lions. And Big Airy says, hey, fellas, why can't we have nice things? We will talk on that point at length when we get into this. It's been rough, hasn't it, Ant? The last the last day.
Let's just say I've ran out of like swear word usage for the year. I got a message the other day saying I'd used too many swear words just because of all this. So yeah, I'm
Swear
no
jar
longer
is full.
I can't swear for the rest of the year. So Lions better play well or I'm going to be in trouble. So
Mm-hmm.
I
That's
don't
what it
know,
is.
man. I mean that OTC tweet the other day from Over the Cap, they're like, yeah, Lions have already got 31 million on IR this season. I'm just like, really? Are we doing this again? I mean, it was like 45, 50 last year, and it's just, yeah.
Yeah, it's rough.
You know what? At this point, I'm kind of like, I'm not going to lie, my enthusiasm for the season has been dampened a bit because, going into this matchup with the Eagles, we need everybody, especially on those trench lines, fit and
Yep.
ready to go. That's the way you win this game is you beat them in the trenches. And now, you know, Big V's injured. They don't seem to have a clue what they're doing at right guard because Kramer's injured as well. And it's just, I mean, all this talk about switching Ragnow into right guard, which I completely disagree with. Panay into right guard, which I completely disagree
Yeah.
with. When you've got elite weapons, keep them in their spots and just make do elsewhere.
Yep.
Don't nullify your top players' impact by trying to move them and fit them in, square peg round hole syndrome. But I'm
You
just
are wasting quality content here, by the way.
I'll talk about this again afterwards, but I'm just my enthusiasm for the season has been dampened. I'm not gonna lie, because I'm tired.
Yeah,
I'm
I know
just
how you feel.
tired of the tweets. Oh, we've put this player on IR. This player's out for the season. I'm just like, you know what? What's the point? What really is the point anymore? We're just gonna have another season where it's like, oh, we've been hampered by injuries. Oh wait, we'll wait another 12 months then, and maybe we can have some optimism. I'm overreacting. I'm emotional. I just about all these injuries. They're just really annoying me. And it's just like, can we not even get to game one? Can we not even at least like get injuries during a game?
Yeah.
Not even out of game situations where it's happening. And Levi's not fit still. We're still waiting for Pascal. We're waiting for everybody. I mean, our injury list, and then you look at the Eagles, 4 people, 3 of them light practice, one of them full practice, and you're just like, how's that fair?
It's
We got like
plenty of time for it to change.
we got like 16 on ours.
No, it isn't. It was 7 yesterday.
Well, if you're including all the ones who are on pup and not even playing,
Okay, fine, pup included. But the people who were eligible to play, there was 7 on the list.
yeah. But we've got what, 6 on pup,
Yes, 6 on pup or NFI, yeah.
and then 7 more who are struggling.
Dan has made a fair point saying the O-line will roughly be the same with how we finished last season and Jared had time then. It's a fair
I
comment.
know, I know, I know. Hank Fraley's good with it. I just want my top guys in playing.
Yeah,
I'm just,
yeah.
I'm just fed up of them all being injured. And it's just like I want to show this league what this team is capable of. Because I think if this, I mean, it's obviously unrealistic to expect everyone to be fit at once. But if this team is majority healthy, not coming off bad injuries, and is playing well, it has the potential to be a really good team. And we can see that, but the rest of the league can't. They will see that we're losing games, and they'll be like, "Oh God, they're terrible again." It's like, no, we really, really are not terrible.
Yeah.
We're just having, you know, what's the opposite to the look of the Irish? Whatever
um,
that is,
yeah, yeah, it's not the
it's
best.
us. So
Shall we shall we just go quickly into our offline slide and then go live and get all of this good content in?
yeah, screw it, let's do it.
All right. Guys, we're going to go silent for about 20 seconds and then we'll be getting on with the show. We're going to be doing this sort of thing going forward if we get the chance because it gives us a chance to have a chat just about football or non-football or whatever, and hopefully you guys like that and want to chat along with us about everything and anything. It will vary in length just depending on how long we have, but do get involved in this sort of thing. Hang right there and we'll be back in about 20 seconds time or so if I can get this right. Okay, here we go.
Excuse me.
I'm going to wait for the timer to time down.
Recording in progress.
Oh, this one.
Welcome to another edition of the Royal Alliance UK podcast, episode 139, The Team That Can and Will. My name's Matthew Turner alongside Anthony Fitzpatrick, and before we get on to how you are, man, I just want to say at the top of the show, because I think it needs to be addressed, RIP to Her Majesty the Queen, rest in peace. Obviously, a lot of you guys who are listening to this are not from this country. My stats say maybe about 60% of you guys are not from here. So it may be something which is perhaps slightly difficult to understand, and not a lot of the guys over here are particular royalists either, but I think all of us are feeling a sense of loss today. We still wanted to go ahead and do the show. It goes on. The game, we're still going to be playing on Sunday and we need to talk about this. It's odd. I'm not a royalist, but it feels like I've lost a grandmother that I kind of never really knew. I don't know if you want to say anything, Ant, or add to that, but just, thoughts and prayers with the royal family at this time.
No, I think you've summed it up all right there.
All right, let's get on with the show. Ant, how you doing, man?
Yeah, not doing bad. Well, I was doing all right until all our players started getting injured, and then I started getting a little angry, and then I started getting a little depressed, and then I'm just like, I just want one day where we can go without an injury and where we can sort of enjoy this upcoming season. But hey ho, if there's one area of this team we can fix where we're getting injuries, it's the offensive line. If there's one coach that I trust to be able to get us through this little mini crisis to start the season off, it is Hank Fraley. So let's just see what happens. This team fought through a lot of adversity and a lot of injury last year, and we finished off winning half our games in the last 7, pretty much. So, you know, I am still looking forward to it. It's just like this is just not the sort of stuff you want on the week beforehand. Everything's going so well, and then it just dampens the spirits a little bit.
Yeah, it really does. I feel a bit deflated going into this game now. It really felt like we were going to be matching strength on strength, and it was going to be one of those kind of things to watch. And now it really feels like going against a team that a lot of people were kind of considering a team that are better than we are, that we thought we'd be competitive and would risk a victory here and potentially, really push them close. And now it feels like the route to victory is narrower, shall we say?
Yeah. It's yeah, it's a lot tougher. There's two keys to victory this week. One is running the ball on them, taking the clock down, keeping the offense off the field. And then the second one is being aggressive on defense, going hunting down Jalen Hurts and, sort of crumbling that offense at its core. And now one of those objectives just became a hell of a lot harder because, that run game, especially around the right hand side of it, Vaitai and Sewell were really good working in tandem last year, creating running lanes, disrupting defensive lines and that. And now that's gone. And I mean, I've all the confidence in the world that Evan Brown will come in and perform well in Ragnar's absence. I'm not too fussed about that. I think he'll do well, but this is one of the better defensive lines you're coming up against here. They're very versatile. They've got a lot of guys on there who can switch around, confuse you, and it's you want to be at full strength for these games. This is the kind of game where your full strength offensive line can win it for you against the odds. And when you don't have the full strength, it feels like, you've lost a key weapon there. So yeah, it's going to be tough. I think this is all going to predicate now on how little you can let them score on you. This has shifted massively onto the defense now. That defensive line that we are investing in, the linebackers who we can bring up and put pressure on, a lot rests with them now while we figure out what to do on the offense.
Yeah, we'll get into that when we talk about the preview of the Eagles game in the second part of the show, but let me get through some of the preamble first. Don't forget our Discord channel. Do come and join us on there. If you need the link, I'll DM it out to you guys, or I'll tweet it out shortly after the show. College Football Podcast and Week 2 fast approaching. You talked about it yesterday, I think.
We did, yes. So we had a review of week 1. Week 1 was absolutely crazy. We spent about an hour and 40 minutes talking about it, and we didn't even get in all the games that we wanted to. But yeah, it was great. There was some great stuff on there. Obviously, there's the great news that Sam Hartman's back and well. There were big concerns about him, the Wake Forest quarterback. So that was really good to hear. We had a look at week 2. We previewed all the Pick Watch games for the week. Obviously, we've got the College Pick Watch League going on in our Discord now, so you can go and listen to that here. Mine and Ryan's predictions as well. We had a little look at some of the other games as well, and then Ryan actually released his. So what me and Ryan have been doing, we've been coming up with like PFF sides, like all PFF sides, but they're for the Power 5 programs and they're for sleeper players in the draft. So all those guys who aren't getting draft love, who are not really getting talked about, we wanted to shine a light on them. So we've done a 22-man team, picked from all sorts of different players and all sorts of different teams. We're shining a spotlight on them. Ryan did his team yesterday. I'll be doing my team next week. So there's a lot of good stuff in there. So yeah, go check it out. College football is a very intriguing world at the minute.
It is. It's going to be a really great one, and I can't wait for the Miami-Kentucky game. Kentucky game. That's going to be really cool.
Battle of potential future Lions quarterbacks, if that's your way inclined next year. Will Levis versus Anthony Richardson. I'm not quite on that hype train just yet. Not Anthony Richardson's. I am with Will Levis's, but yeah, for the quarterback guys, if you want to have a little look at that, that's fine. Or you've got South Carolina and you've got Arkansas. You've got Spencer Rattler versus my personal favorite, KJ Jefferson. That's another one if you want to watch potential quarterbacks going into next year. That'll be a fun game. So yeah, a lot of good going on.
Don't forget to like the show and sub to the podcast. Give us a review if you can. Would appreciate you very much. And download the app at Lions Nation Unite, Herman Moore's project to bring about the best content creators that the Lions have to offer all in one place. We're also a Twitch affiliate. If you are an Amazon Prime subscriber, you have a free Prime sub to use if you're not already using it. If you can chuck it our way, it doesn't cost you a penny, but it does put a little bit of money in our pocket, which is always lovely. And Ant mentioned College Pick Watch. We also have an NFL Pick Watch going. I've put it in the chat of both Twitch and YouTube if you want to go up against us throughout the season. Game 1, obviously, tonight with the Rams and why have I forgotten who they're playing? Who are the Rams playing?
Bills.
Bills, that's the
Bills.
one. Thank you.
What do you mean? Who are they playing? That's your favourite team. It's your favourite quarterback.
It is my favourite quarterback. Yes, so obviously the first game getting in then, so getting your pick for game one now. Do go ahead and click the link in the description. We're going to get onto some news. Our first segment is going to be about the final episode of Hard Knocks, and then we're going to be moving on to talk about the Philadelphia game this Sunday, and about halfway through that we will be talking to the Next Man Up podcast, which is brought to you by the British and Irish Eagles. They'll be giving us their expert analysis on how the Eagles have done this off-season and what to expect from their side at this game on Sunday. So don't miss that. It's going to be about 8:30 UK time, 3:30 ET if you want to catch that. All right, the news. Halapudavati Vaitai has been put on IR. It means he misses at least the first 4 games, although potentially the injury is more serious. It's been alluded to by several people who probably don't know what they're talking about, but potentially he will be doing that. Will be missing a few more games than that. We have replaced him by signing Drew Forbes from waivers from the Browns. He has a RAS of 9.8. He is particularly explosive. He's particularly quick for an interior offensive lineman. He has a good 3-cone. So he's an athletic guy. He was a 6th round pick in 2019, picked by the current assistant to the general manager that we have, who was the GM of the Browns at the time, and so he obviously is very familiar with Drew. He was actually signed to be a starter, but kind of got injured, and it never really happened for him there. He can play all along the line, as far as I understand. Dan Campbell alluded to the fact that he can play centre and guard, but actually he was signed to be a tackle and couldn't really hang with the speed of the game on the outside. But with Vaitai going down, it adds someone into the mix. The Lions signed, then released tackle Darren Paolo from the practice squad within a day of each other and signed centre Ross Pierschbacher. His RAS not quite so fruitful, 4.94. He was on the practice squad of the Jets. He was a draft pick of theirs. 7th round pick, 2020, something like that. 6th round pick, I'm not sure. He has played in a handful of NFL games, but not really done a huge amount in the league, really. MCDC says that he hasn't really decided who's going to play call plays on the offense. I think he's teasing. I think everyone knows really what's going on there. Final bit of news. Sean Dion Hamilton has joined the Lions once again, but not as a player this time, as a defensive assistant coach. I presume that's him announcing his retirement, but at the age of 26, I guess there's always a route for him to try in the next cycle to catch on with the team, and so I don't know whether we're closing the door on his career just yet, but he's looking to the future, clearly.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I really don't want to be too harsh about guys like this, but he had the injuries. He never really showed it on the pitch, and maybe he's seen that the way is into coaching. Because I mean, if there's one thing the Lions are doing, they are taking on former players and developing them as coaches. So it's quite possible that he's seen this and thought, you know what, actually, I really do want to coach when my career's done. No better place than to maybe start as a grad assistant here, work my way through, get some experience. If I can't play, it's sound planning for the future. So hopefully, he's able to. Hopefully, he's able to contribute it. Because I know people who did like him used to say, sort of how cerebral he was. Sort of he knows the game very well. It was just never able to translate into a playing form. But of course, some of the best coaches out there have not played before. It's just simply a thing. They were a lot better with their mind, implemented it to other players than they are themselves. So I hope it works out for him. I really do. But it's good that these kind of players are not on our team no more. We're sort of progressing beyond this, so to speak.
And then, obviously, they're kind of toing and froing with Paolo and Pierschbacher. We will come to this later, but Ragnar got injured at the end of Wednesday's practice and did not practice today. Generally speaking, guys that don't practice on Thursday do not play on Sunday, obviously with some exceptions, but I would put his chances of playing at about 25% at this point. I think that stands the test of time.
Probably a doubtful designation, isn't he?
Yeah, feels like that very much. And I mean, Pierschbacher, will he even be active? I mean, we're signing him presumably to protect against any injury to Evan Brown, and then he will be the backup. But I suspect that he will probably be inactive come game day, assuming that those two guys are fit.
Yeah, you would assume so. I think you've always got to try and have your next man up. So you stash him on the practice squad, depending on the severity of Ragnar's injury. Stash him on the practice squad, try and get him up to speed. I mean, let's not forget, Evan Brown had never started an NFL game when he came to Detroit, ever. And I mean, Hank Fraley's turned him into one of the best backup centers in the entire NFL at this point. He could realistically be a starter at quite a few teams. So, I'm inclined to believe that, if Pierschbacker's here long enough, Fraley's able to get his hands on him, try and develop him a little bit. Maybe we might have something. I'm not going to christen him now, but Fraley's got a history of this sort of stuff. So you've got him there, Rabina Reze's on there. Potentially you've got some really good talent to work with and keep them going forward. So, yeah, I mean, I called it the second we signed in the Ragnar thing. I'd come out. I said, "There's no reason we should be signing a third center unless one of the others is hurt." So we'll just have to see what the severity with Ragnar is. The way they make it sound, it would be like, oh, maybe he's just a bit hit and miss for this weekend. He'll be back by week 2. But we've been bitten by this enough times already. We know better than to believe the spiel from coaches now. So, like I say, we can't say anything until we see what happens. But let's give Pierschbacher a go. Let's see what he does. I expected not to see him activated, but they must see something in him. Hank knows offensive line talent. So I will trust his judgment on this one.
We've got a few guys in the chat. Micro Mike's here, Geordie Mansion and Drew Forsyth, and other people have said hello to Grandizer, as well as One Pride 40, and we've got Dan Paskin, Big Aries in the Twitch chat as well. Just want to give a shout out to all you guys for being here. We will get on to the injuries and how that impacts the team when we talk about the Eagles in just a moment. But let's talk about Hard Knocks now. It's not yet aired here. It airs tonight on Sky and tomorrow, but we have found a way. I mean,
let's not admit to criminality on air, Matthew. Let's just say we've watched it and that's it.
We have watched a totally legal stream. And we're going to talk about it now. So obviously you guys have already seen it. It's just as an overview and a high-level take, extremely emotional episode. I haven't really watched much of Hard Knocks in the past, I have to say. I didn't realise, one, that we'd see people get fired. Like, I hoped that we would see the interviews because I thought it would be a good point. I didn't realise that we'd see them get fired, and I didn't realise how well some of these guys were going to take it.
I mean, not just before we start this, not to be too technical, but are they getting fired? Because they don't have a contract technically here, do they? These guys? I mean, no. Obviously, the drafted guys now do, but like the undrafted free guys, the ones who've been on the practice squad and that.
Yeah, no, they all have contracts. They get their contracts terminated when they get released.
Oh, well, okay.
Well, yeah. So all of the veterans sign a 1 year, $1 million contract and then don't make that money,
But then we don't really have to pay a lot of it when they go, do they? So it's kind of, I don't know.
I presume that we have to pay some semblance of it for them going through training camp, but there we go. Anyway, so the episode starts out with it kind of profiling some of the guys that it views as on the bubble. So it has Malcolm Rodriguez, David Blau, Khalil Pimpleton, and Obina Eze, of which one made it, but one was always going to make it, is now a projected starter for the team in Malcolm Rodriguez. I think the depth charts of a lot of places have him starting on Sunday. Personally, I'll be surprised about that, just to say. I think that Barnes might get the nod for snap 1, but I think they might play an equal amount of snaps, but just give the nod to the guy who's been here a year, just because. But for these 4 guys in particular, they kind of went into a small amount of depth at the start about what it would mean to these guys in their lives to either make it or not make it. So, I think people really do forget that it is a job for these guys, and they have wives and girlfriends and kids and themselves to support. And while some people do catch on with other teams, as we found out with Blau and Pimp later, for some people, they may never get another shot. We've seen people like Jamie Collins from last year, who we got rid of. And, a lot of people wanted that to happen. The guy still doesn't have a team this off-season, is doing the tryout circuit now, and that might be him calling it a career if he can't catch on with some people. So, whatever we think about these guys and their effort levels or whatever, this can be career-ending.
Oh, absolutely. I say, like, less than 1% of them will all start out make it, and then even when you do make it, even less of them get it through to a final 53. It's brutal. It really is, and you don't realize everything they have to put themselves through. It's like you spend years and years and years just trying to get one opportunity to get on the roster, and then all you've done there, that's like a light workout compared to what you have to do to get on the actual NFL roster itself. And Yeah, it just shows, it is an emotional thing, and you can tell that because I mean later on in the show, one of the player relations staff was talking to Dan Campbell about it. They were checking on him to see how he was
Mm.
because he was quite emotional about it. I think he didn't like doing it. It was Holmes doing a lot of the openings, and Holmes was telling the people that they were being waived or released. It wasn't Campbell. I don't
Yeah.
think he would have been able to bring himself to do it, quite frankly. Holmes has to because he's GM, and you have to do that sort of stuff. But I don't know, it affected him. It was tough to see some of them.
Indeed, yeah.
I mean,
So you saw Dan Campbell kind of reflecting on the player's position, the grind, the kind of cuts, agonising over the decisions, kind of talking to his group about who they were going to do it with, and then you see the interviews from all of these people under like learning whether they are in or not. So Boyle, Funchess, Skipper, Hector, Davis, Kennedy. Iguabuke, Lucas, Pimpleton, Eze, Blau, all of these guys found out one way or the other. And one thing that really cut me up, actually, two things that cut me up, was seeing Dan Skipper with tears in his eyes. Like, the guy's a gentle giant, and I just felt for him so much. And then Bruce Hector saying to Brad Holmes, "Is there anything more I could have done?" And them just saying, "No, you did everything you could." Same with Tom Kennedy. You did everything you could. You absolutely balled out there, and you deserve a place on this team, and I'm really sorry you don't have it.
see, a lot of people have been mentioning Skipper and how hard it was to see him. This is going to probably make me out to be a bad man, but when I saw it, I'm just like, I'm indifferent. I'm like, I'm sorry, Dan, but you're not good enough. And this is a decision that had to be made. And I know it upsets you, but this makes me sound awful. But this team has to evolve past players like him, like players like Kennedy. It has to evolve and get better. And as much as we like these guys for the scrappy tenacity they have and what they bring, like Duncan says, they bring it all. There comes a line when you just have to get more talented as a team, and these players are not it.
Yes.
So I understand it's upsetting for him, but part of me is just like, good, because I know my team's going in the right direction now. I know it's trying to get better at these positions and it's trying to get better players on here. So, it's just tough. I mean, it was nice to see the guys like when they were telling them they were going to get back on the practice squad and that. I mean, with Eze, I like Eze. I've kind of gotten to like him over this, and I know some people think he comes across as a bit indifferent and whatnot, but it's a big sort of cultural shift coming to do all this. You're undrafted free agent, you're coming into grind. I said when we signed Eze, he was destined probably for the practice squad. I may have said a few times he might make depth here, but he's right. He does have issues that he needs to work with. And you saw him talking with Hank Fraley afterwards. He was noting down what he needed to do, what he was going to have to do to get better to make this team. And I think with the right development, that Eze is going to become a good player for this team. Because, like I said, he's got rare length. He's got the right physical attributes that teams want in the NFL. It's up to him to master it and to grind for it. And I think we will see him back. Maybe not sooner rather than later. I think it's going to be like a Logan Stenberg type scenario. Stenberg came out of college with big issues with his technique and also maybe with the aggressiveness, sometimes the penalties and that. And I was always a fan of his, and I said it's probably going to take time with him because you have to weed that out. You have to get them to rethink a lot of how they play the game, sort everything. That's not something that happens overnight. The muscle memory with the stuff they're doing, etc. It takes time, and hopefully we'll see the fruits of that with Stenberg this year. And I'm confident that we will see the same with Eze down the line. I think he will be a fixture for us at some stage, and I was actually really glad because you could tell that he was kind of crushed when they said they were waiving him, and then they said you're going to get another opportunity. And I expect him to embrace that. I expect most of the players who went down there, especially the young ones, to embrace it, to come back and
Yeah.
do well.
Were you? So I don't know how to put this because I don't know how much I buy into it, but the way it was put and the way the guys were discussing it in real time, makes it seem like the discussions on running back three between Godwin and Reynolds was a legitimate thing that they were seriously considering. And I think most of us were thinking Reynolds has nailed on for three, and it's between Godwin and everyone else for four. But they were seriously considering not taking Reynolds, which really surprised me.
I mean, I do and I don't,
Mm.
because you heard Juice himself mention that he's not a third down back, not a third down blocking back. That's a big thing for the guy. If you're going to take a third or a fourth string running back, you take them for their ability to come in on third downs and block, do some of the dirty work, try and earn their way up to a position where they can rush the ball more. And that's the issue they had, because we know Craig Reynolds can rush the ball. We know he can find the gaps. He can make big chunk plays. We know he can do that, but he's down the pecking order behind Jamal and DeAndre. And so, as a running back three, you have certain obligations to fill on this roster, which technically he can't. So they've taken him, knowing that they're sort of putting this deficiency on the pass blocking and that there. Obviously, they brought Jamar back as well. He's on the practice squad. He can do it. So if you need to come in, bring him up, elevate him, rotate him in, and that you can do that there. But I'm not surprised it was a legit discussion, because obviously Godwin brings the return stuff as well. But I think I'm not as sure it was as close cut as it was made out to be on Hard Knocks, because like you were saying the other day when we were talking about the 53, I know we've always been a lot harder on Godwin, but he didn't get a chance to go out on the field and defend himself, by making plays. And I think deep down they knew that the fumbling was just too much of an issue for him. If you're going to have a returner, you've got to be dependable. And he was not dependable as a returner last year in high pressure situations. And I think the writing was on the wall a lot earlier than it was. Maybe that footage was from earlier in camp and it's been sort of brought back a little bit later, but I'm not sure there was big competition there for it. And I mean, how close can it have been? Because they've kept Jamar as well. And I'm surprised Jamar was not mentioned at all in this conversation, because obviously, he's in that room as well. Guys fighting for that. We've kept Reynolds and Jamar over Godwin. So if it was between Godwin and Reynolds, why was Jamar not mentioned?
Yeah, and
That's what makes me think this was not a battle at all, and it was just more put in for a little bit of theatre.
I mean, I don't understand it because in terms of people who made the 53 and then were cut the next day, they talked about Blau. So why not talk about Jamar? Like, I find that a very
Hmm.
a very odd thing, but there we go. I mean, we never really saw much of Jamar Jefferson at all in Hard Knocks. He wasn't really a story there, which I don't understand because draft pick from last year, fought to make it, got
Well, they made
injured.
an
I think
issue
he would
of
have been a
running back.
story.
They made an
Yeah,
issue of running back depth, so surely you put everyone in that story. But maybe there was just nothing to tell there.
maybe, but I mean, a lot of people were saying maybe Justin Jackson is fighting his way into running back three. He didn't even make it to five, by the sounds of it, because Godwin was the guy they were talking about. So I, I,
Yeah,
I don't get it. It doesn't really make sense to me.
that's it. Jackson's back on practice squad, isn't he, as well?
Yeah,
So Godwin's below Jamar and Jackson, who didn't get mentioned. So what was it? We were going to take Godwin as a 3 or a 6? I
I
mean,
mean, I guess maybe Godwin wants to test the market now. He's a free agent, whereas Jackson was happy to come back on the practice squad. I don't know. It is
yeah.
one of those things, isn't it? They can only sign on a practice squad if they want to be here on a reduced salary, whereas maybe some guys are going to
Hmm.
want to catch on elsewhere.
I know. I know they showed bits about Pimpleton and Blau being in new arenas, didn't they? Obviously, I was happy for Pimpleton. I like Pimpleton as a player, and I was kind of gutted. And obviously, he's going to test. Any player wants to test themselves. If a club's go say, "I'll give you more of a chance than these guys to make a roster," of course you're going to go there. Especially with how fickle this game is, you want to go where you can maximize your opportunity for success. So I fully understand his reason to go there. I mean, whole Blau stuff at Minnesota, I disliked him before, really. I really dislike him now. He's there like, oh, I've got a new opportunity to be part of something great here. It's just like, shut up, David. You had more than enough chance here to make a name for yourself, and you blew it. It's no to do with us. And then you're
Oh
there
yeah,
like,
I
it's
don't think there were any shots fired on his point though. I think a lot of people read into that, and what I read into it, which is exactly the same reason as why I think Pimpleton's gone, is what they've said is
it's
because
giving
of
him an
my
opportunity.
play, I now have no chance here. so I can have a
Yeah,
fresh start somewhere else. That's what I'm reading into, is I ruined my chance, so I need to leave.
yeah, I know.
I don't know. Um, Another thing, kind of in the middle of all of this, was Chase Lucas. They profiled him a little bit, kind of in pre-season. I think game 2, after the game or before the game was working out, maybe game 3. Before the game, he was kind of sitting on the field while everyone was practicing, and he was kind of just quietly contemplating what's going on and the fact that he's in the NFL and that he's just kind of trying to soak it all in and getting emotional about it. It's amazing to see, and you hear AG say about Chase that this guy loves football, like more than the rest of these guys who love football. He loves football, and that you see him all the way through the episode go, I think he's going to be something, or I think I'm going to be something great, and you've got AG saying, yeah, maybe you could be, or other people saying, yeah, if you keep putting in the work, maybe you could be, and he's like, I'm feeling it, I'm going to be something here,
I
and like
think
there's something very likable about him. It's not, even though he's kind of trying to talk the talk a little bit, it's not boastful, it's not arrogance, it really is just a feeling for
confidence.
him. Yeah, confidence, a feeling within him that he's going to take the world by storm.
You need it though. If you are on that periphery, if you're a seventh round draft pick, you're an undrafted free agent, you're walking a fine line between respect and, swagger, a bit of confidence in there. Obviously, you've got to be respectful of everyone around you. You've got to understand the grind is tough and that. But if you're not showing that you think, you're hard done to, you're not better than the guy next to you, etc., then you'll not be taken seriously. I mean, you saw him like during the Pittsburgh game, he's talking trash, but at the same time, you see him being respectful to his coaches. I mean, I find it quite poignant that he asked his coach, can I be a starter in the NFL? And he's like, you wouldn't be here if you couldn't. And I think that's the whole point. If you make a 53-man roster, I think in 99.9% of the cases, it's because your coaches believe that you can solidify yourself as a part of this roster, be it as a starter, be it as depth, be it as rotation, backup, whatever. They have a grander plan for you here, and you need to believe that you can be part of that. So, I mean, Lucas has the exact correct attitude that you need there. And I mean, they showed him. I'm really surprised they didn't show Demetrius Taylor during this. He was the undrafted free agent who made the roster.
Yeah,
But I don't need to know. I don't need to see Demetrius on Hard Knocks to know that he's the exact kind of player that Lucas is in terms of his attitude. He will grind and grind and grind, but at the same time, he will talk smack to you. He will walk around with that swagger, that deservedness, that he belongs on an NFL roster type thing, and he gets the balance just right with it. So, it's great that these guys are fighting it out. And as you said last year, so Jerry Jacobs, AJ Parker, Tommy Kramer, Brock Wright, all these guys, it's now shown players that it doesn't matter what your draft stock is here, it doesn't matter how you come into this organization, there is an opportunity there to be had.
yeah,
We gave AJ Parker and Jerry Jacobs opportunities. They came in, they grinded their asses off. AJ has survived this year. He's on the practice squad, admittedly, but he still survived. Not many undrafted free agents make it to a second season in the NFL, and he showed enough last year for them to go, you know what, I want him on my practice squad so I can carry on developing him and bear the fruits of labor.
yeah,
Jerry Jacobs will be back on the 53-man roster, I believe, when he comes back fit. Kramer was scheduled to start at right guard this week because he came in and grinded and did that. And now I think that's inspired the next generation of players to come in and say, I can do this.
yeah.
You get your Chase Lucases, you get your Demetrius Taylors going, they can do it. If they give these guys the opportunity to make this roster, I'm going to take my chance as well, and I'm going to make it tough for them. And in Demetrius's case, Dan Campbell's saying, I couldn't ignore him if I wanted to. I'm trying to ignore him, and he won't let me ignore him because he's making plays, he's grinding. I can't not take him seriously, and that's what you want. And now Demetrius is like, that hard work has paid off into a roster spot, and now he's got to keep on developing, and he's got to earn it. And when Pascal and co come back, he's going to have to fight like hell for his place, but he knows that if he does, they'll keep him. And I think that's going to carry on while ever Dan Campbell's here. More players are going to come up, especially in these later rounds, and know that their future's their own.
Yeah.
If they work hard, they'll get it.
They got a
So
shot. They got a
Yeah,
shot. Just to recap the rest of the episode, we found out from Brad Holmes that Rodrigo's jersey sales are doing great, and he's just behind Hutchinson this year in terms of merch sales, and just the fact that clearly the fans are embracing him and his story and how far he's come, and the fact that he's absolutely balling out there. We saw Nate Subfeld at the front of the meeting room, and then the fact that Blauer decided not to come back, and he was going to Minnesota, and MCDC was really gutted the fact that Blau wasn't returning. Like, he took it quite personally, I thought, which was interesting. We then saw Blau in his Vikings uniform. We saw Pimp's work out with the Giants, and true to form, dropped the first two passes that went his way before catching everything else. I feel like we've seen this story before. We then saw Eminem watching practice and chatting to the coaches and the players and saying, he's ready to lace up and play for the team, and providing lunch for the team from his restaurant, Mum's Spaghetti. And then we saw kind of final part of the episode, the build up to kind of what to expect from the Lions this year. We saw Shep say that the Lions are putting the NFL on notice and that the team wants to make a Super Bowl, and the first step to do that is to make the playoffs. And we saw MCDC look very emotional about the question, the 2022 Detroit Lions will what? And it took him about 90 seconds to speak with tears in his eyes and then say they will be the team that can and will. And I think that every Lions fan was wondering where he would go with it to begin with, because he could have, like you said, he could have gone in many different directions with the question. He could have given something specific. He could have actually put a numerical target out there. He could have talked about what he talked about before in terms of grit or never giving up or stuff like that. But he decided to go in a different direction. I think every Lions fan felt exactly what he was saying.
I think he did. Yeah, I mean, I saw this really really funny meme going about. Said what a husband said to his wife when he comes back and she asks how many beers he's had, and it has that Dan Campbell with the really long silence, and he goes, "Boy, there's a lot of ways I could answer this." I found that hilarious, but I think overall the message he had was quite poignant, because I mean he's referencing the old Green Bay Packers guy Jerry Kramer, who sort of said that in regards to being about a man, he who can will. Jerry Kramer was a guy who went through a lot of adversity in his career, especially injury wise. He had some horrific injuries, and yet he came back and won championships. He became, he's one of the best Packers players there's been, especially at guard position. And you kind of, symbolize that to what Detroit's going through. It's gone through a lot of personal hardship. It's gone through a lot of professional hardship, and it is trying to reach the top of the mountain like Jerry Kramer did. Dan Campbell just gets it. He really does. The references, it means Detroit. It means the same journey that Jerry Kramer was on all those years ago to get to the top. And that's where Dan Campbell wants to take us. And a lot of people are like, what does that mean? It's like, well, do your research. Really. There is something poignant behind it. He's a lot smarter than people think. He's a lot more than the dumb jock that anyone outside of Detroit says he is. So, I thought that was really, really poignant with him there. I enjoyed the Eminem
True
stuff.
rah-rah men
Yeah.
say exactly what's on their mind without hesitation. They jump in feet first and they don't think about it.
No.
He gives the rah-rah mentality when he wants to, but he can give the thoughtful, considered answer when he needs to, and that's what makes him, for me, a very good NFL coach. And maybe, I won't say head coach just yet, as we've said all the way through in this preseason, he's got to back it up with wins at some point. But at this point in time, I think we can say that he is an excellent coach of men.
He's established a culture. A lot of head coaches who've coached in the NFL before have never established a culture or never established a good one. He has. That's the first hardest job you have as an NFL head coach, is to set the culture and get the players to buy into what you're doing. And well, it's obvious the players are buying into what they're doing. We've got undrafted free agents, seventh round players making the rosters. We've got guys like Malcolm Rodriguez coming out of nowhere, making plays, wanting to be the best person they can be. So it is very clear to anyone who even slightly watches this team, the players are bought into him. Yes, now that has to translate into phase two, which is progression forward on the field, victories, going in the right direction, etc. But like you said, to this point, he's given us no reason to doubt that he could be a very successful NFL head coach. I think The one thing that really disappointed me in this episode, though, I'm not going to lie, when Eminem was, without or with all the players, and don't get, I loved Eminem's appearance in this. I thought it was great. I was disappointed that there was a lack of a leader on the team there who didn't sort of walk up to him, slap the glove on the floor, and go, right, we're having a rap battle. I wanted someone to go up there and challenge him. I wanted to see it. And, when he was like dabbing Jamal up and that, I thought, oh, go on, Swifty, go on, Swaggy. Have a go, have a rap, just do something.
I would love.
Anyone can do it.
I would love to see Jared Goff give it a go.
Jared Goff versus Eminem in a rap battle. You know what? I bet Jared Goff's one of those guys who would drop a sick beat down on you and you would have no idea.
Well, just take you completely by surprise and you wouldn't be able to respond because, like, what the hell just happened?
It'd be like a culture thing, wouldn't it? Because Jared Goff's grown up on the West Coast. You get that West Coast scene going down on there, a bit different to what they do over in Detroit. You got a nice mesh of styles there. I bet Jared Goff could drop a sick beat if he wanted to, but I think Jamal might. That's why I say when he dabbed him up, I'm like, oh please Jamal, please battle him, and he didn't. I was so disappointed. That would have just made Hard Knocks like a 12 out of 10 overall for the season rather than a 10 out of 10, I must say. But it was good to see him there and that. It was fun. A lot, it's not just a gimmick. I think a lot of people in Detroit are buying in. I mean, we've sold out the game this weekend, first time since 2019 or whatever. Barry Sanders is back in the building. Chris Spielman's back in the building. All these guys who are synonymous with Detroit, whether it be the team or the city, are coming in and buying in and seeing what they're doing. And they buy into it. The city's bought into this just as much as the players have. So, it just feels like a united force for once.
It does. It does. Right. We'll move this on, shall we? Because I think time's moving on. It's 8:10 now. We have got our Eagles guys, the British and Irish Eagles, featuring the Next Man Up podcast. They're going to be on with us in about 20 minutes' time. So we're going to start previewing the Philly game on Sunday. We're going to go through all the nuts and bolts of things so we can talk to them about the stuff that actually really matters and the stuff that really makes a difference instead of going through some of the basics. So let's hit this all now. The betting lines for Sunday's game, Betfair, they say that the Eagles are 2-1 on, lines 8-5. 2-1 on for the Eagles equates to about -200, I think, in American money. Eagles -3.5 on the spread, and over/under is set at 48.5 points. In terms of the game preview by ESPN, they have the Eagles with a 65.8% chance to win the game to the line's 33.8 with a 0.4% tie. The injury reports have come out for the Eagles, and a couple of guys were limited on Wednesday but are now full practice today. So that's Derek Barnett and Javon Hargrave. He's full practice, as well as Miles Sanders. He's full practice this week, but he's got a hammy. Josiah Scott remains limited through Wednesday and Thursday. For the Lions, they haven't released their Thursday practice injury report yet. We know that Kaminsky, Kramer, and Onzarike did not practice Wednesday, and then Board, Melifonwu, Julian Aquara, Frank Ragnow, and Austin Seibert were all limited on Wednesday. But on Thursday, we know at this point that Ragnow, Onzarike, and Kramer did not practice today. That says to me, and we touched on it earlier, that Frank getting injured at the back end of Wednesday, not practicing on Thursday, and Kramer not practicing means that they're trending towards not playing in this game. Now, they can still make a recovery, there's still time, but it's got to put their chances at much less than 50% here.
Yeah, I think I think at this minute in time you have to presume the worst is the worst with these guys. I think at this point, like you say, if you get a doubtful designation, very often you don't play or you're playing limited. I think you just have to accept that maybe you're going to have to go without these guys. I mean, I think we were always prepared for Levi to not make the season. Obviously, it's just the offensive line where it's all kind of just thrown everything into flux a little bit. I mean, it's a shame for Kramer, really, more than anything, because, the whole issue with Halapoulivarti, is, there might be a starting right guard opportunity for him there this year, because Bigby might not be here next year. So this was Kramer's chance to come in a high-profile game and shine for us. And he might miss it now, which is a shame because he might not get the opportunity again if someone else comes in and does it. So, I just feel bad for him, but it's not ideal in a lot of these situations. When you come into the season banged and nicked up already, then it's a bit, and we've still got a lot of guys on pup, but I think it's kind of a problem we realized we were going to have anyhow. We had an abnormal amount of injuries last year, long-term ones, which people are coming off. So, let's just next man up, let's go. We won 3 games last year when we had the vast majority of our team out. We had $100 million worth of talent on the shelf, be it through dead cap or IR. That's the sort of restraints we were working with last year, and we still beat 2 playoff chasing sides. So, this is the land of opportunity in Detroit. Make your case, step up, and take that spot. I mean, we've got Logan Stenberg good to go at last. We've got the new guy in from Cleveland good to go. Whether you go with Pierce Parker as well, who knows? But at least I'm comfortable knowing that we're all right at center. This isn't 2 of our O line go down. I feel like it's 1 to me because I am completely confident in Evan Brown coming in and performing well in this one. Obviously, he's up against some fierce competition, but he was last year and he came out top and won. So, yeah. And I feel bad, but I feel better knowing the tackles are intact because the tackle depth is trash. If this was a tackle out, I'd be a lot more worried. But it's still not ideal. Hopefully, Kramer's back soon. But I'm looking forward to seeing if Logan can come in now and do this. Because, like I say, I've been a fan of Logan for a long time. I lapsed a little bit, but I always understood the assignment with him when it came to what he needed to work out in his games. He looked good in preseason. He graded out top, I believe, of everyone against the Colts. I know it's like second string Colts, but Colts are a good marker for trench warfare, as if you can go in there and hang with them, you're trending in the right direction. So, I hope Stenberg gets the start, and I want to see him. I want to see what he's made of because these Kentucky linemen are bruisers. They are made for trench warfare. Just this is like the perfect game for him, getting nasty and aggressive in the run game and in pass pro. If he's got this under control, if they've sorted his technical issues out and they've reined in the over aggression, then I'm actually quite excited that he's going to get put into this game.
Yeah, I mean, potentially, isn't the entire game plan out the window? If Brown comes in and does well and Stenberg does well, you got Jackson in the interior too. That's a 3 that, if it plays to its potential, can hold up pretty well, even against the best defensive lines. So we've got to do a little bit of praying, I think, but I think it can work out. I think the worst of all worlds is kicking Saul into guard. If that happens, I'm going to be pretty mad because that means we're playing Matt Nelson, and the guy straight up can't hang with these guys. They just can't at the moment. It's not going to work. So we'll see what happens with that. But we'll talk about matchups in just a moment. Let's talk about trades first of all, or their off-season in general. They've been quite active in the trade market. They acquired pre-draft A.J. Brown, the wide receiver from Tennessee. They traded 18 and 101 in the 2022 NFL draft and immediately signed him to a 4-year, $100 million extension. They then shipped out fairly recently the wide receiver Jalen Reagor, who looked like he wasn't even going to make the team at this point. That's how deep the Eagles are at wide receiver. They traded him to the Vikings, so we'll see him twice now, for a 2023 7 and a 2024 conditional 4th, which could become a 5th if certain things don't happen. But then also they brought in the DB Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and a 2025 7th round pick for a 2023 5th and a 2024 6th, which is unbelievable value. Now the guy is a cornerback really and hasn't played safety for a long time and is going to play safety for the Eagles, so a bit of a difference for CGJ, but that they have been active and they've acquired 2 really good players. And
Yeah, I mean, Howie Roseman's known for his trading, really, isn't he? He's like one of the GMs in the league when it comes to trading. He seems to know what he's doing. Well, he's learned over the years, and he's assembled a good roster there. Because I mean, the verdict was out on Sirianni last year. I mean, I didn't think he'd last longer than Campbell would in his job, but he was blessed to be in a league which was one of the poorest in the NFL. So you're able to get some wins in there. You're able to build up your roster a little bit, and you know I know the hype around them's big this year. I'm personally not on that hype train just yet, but you've got to admit he's done a good job there. And like you say, trade wise, to get Chauncey Gardner for that amount is tantamount to robbery. I don't know how the Saints have let him go for so little. I mean, he's in the last year of his contract. I guess they think anything's better than nothing, but compared to what people have been paying around the leagues, it's cheap. So
I mean,
yeah,
at the very least, if they'd kept him and someone had then signed him in free agency at the end of next year when his contract had finished, they would
they
have
would have got
got
a
a
comp.
fourth round pick in compensation. So
And that's
they've
what Saints
literally
fans are
gotten
saying.
less.
Yeah. But I think the Saints are also in, they're always in cap hell. So they're probably looking at short term cap relief with this one, not having to pay him. But I mean, it's interesting they've got him in at safety, whereas the Eagles have like done away with Anthony Harris, who was a very good safety last year and actually played at safety. And like they've disposed of him now. I'm still not sure how he's not in Detroit yet, but it's yeah, when it comes to the trades, you can't fault them. You've got to look at it from a neutral standpoint, and their roster constructing very well at the moment in time. And that defense especially is dangerous, and it's hard to attack because, like you say, you have a very stout defensive line. So running is difficult, and if you think, right, screw it, I'm just going to throw over them, then you're throwing into a pit of ball hawks, and you've got to be damn accurate and damn precise with what you're doing. So yeah, there are not many obvious deficiencies there. Maybe apart from in the linebacking core, but you've got to break through that defensive line to try and exploit that first. So,
Yeah.
props to them. They are assembling a decent team there.
And moving on to their draft, before talking about free agency and rounding out their off-season work, they only have 5 draft picks after they traded away 18 and 101, but at 13 they took the defensive tackle and draft darling and Raz Monster Jordan Davis. At 51 they took the centre Cam Jurgens, 83 the linebacker Nakobe Dean, 181 the linebacker Kyron Johnson, and 198 the tight end Grant Calcaterra. And for a draft class that only contains 5 picks, you've got some people's favourite pick in the draft in Davis. Yes, he's a defensive tackle, but he is a bit of a monster. A lot of people's favourite centre in this draft, I know there were other people that people liked, but Jurgens has apparently had a fantastic camp so far at centre, and he could be in line to start. I mean, I think Jason Kelsey is actually fit now, so I don't know what's going to happen with that, but apparently he's done very well. Nakobe Dean was obviously fancied as a bit of a first-round pick, came in with some injuries and fell to the third right into their lap. Apparently he's had a very good camp. I don't know about Kyron Johnson particularly, but Calcaterra is supremely talented, but already retired once because of a couple of concussions, so there's always the risk that he'll go. But in taking the risk at that low down, what they've got is, if he doesn't retire because of injury, they've got a tight end who has upside that believes his draft position. So, all in all, that's a heck of a draft class, then.
I don't know. I'm not as sold as you are. Jurgens for me is a bog standard centre. The centre class was a lot better last year, and he was nowhere near as good as Tyler Linderbaum coming out this year. Calcaterra's one hit away from retiring. That's a very big risk that you're taking with him there. Like I say, he's already retired at the college level. He's had lots of problems CTE wise, and like I say, he is one big hit from retiring. Nakobe Dean has injury worries, and to make that, he's an undersized linebacker. That's why he fell so far in the draft. After people said he might be a first round pick, there's a reason that happened. So, I think they've gone risky. They've gone on high upside guys with low floors, in my opinion. Jordan Davis is an athletic freak, don't get me wrong, but you know, if he can't pick it up at the NFL level, he is a lot about his athleticism, and that on its own is not going to work at the next level. So, like I said, you can't judge a draft until 3 years down the line. So it's very hard for me to say whether it's good or not at this minute in time. But personally, right now, initial one, I'm not sold on the draft class from them at all.
Oh.
I'm not sold. Like I say, when you draft, they've gone like us. They've drafted guys with bad injury histories, and they've drafted guys who are, like I say, it's more upside. Jurgens, you're hoping he becomes a lot better than his. Javis, you're hoping he becomes more than an athletic freak. Nakobe Dean, you're hoping, and yeah, I'm not sold on it, me personally.
Fair enough. let's talk about their free agency as well. So they've lost a couple of key guys in there, none more so than the linebacker Alex Singleton, but also the cornerback Steven Nelson, safeties Rodney McLeod, and they've recently released, as you say, Anthony Harris, and the defensive tackle Hassan Ridgeway. They've brought in the outside linebacker Hassan Reddick for 3 years, $45 million, so not cheap for a sack master on the outside. They also have James Bradbury coming in from the Giants, 1 year, $7.25 million. Kaiser White, the outside linebacker, 1 year, $3 million. And then an absolute steal picking up wide receiver Zach Pascal, 1 year, $1.5 million. And free safety Jakaski Tart for 1 year, $1.21 million. They have picked up some guys who could do some really big things. Now, we know that Reddick is not a proper linebacker, really. He tried to do it where he's been in the past, and it's just not his bag. But you line him up as a kind of 3-4 outside linebacker who's going to blitz, much like we actually want some of our linebackers to blitz. And he's been extremely productive, and he could be, with some offensive line worries of our own, a real menace, a real thorn in our side. And that DB room with Gardner Johnson and now Bradbury as well as Slay looks a heck of a lot better than it did last year.
Oh, agreed. Yeah, they've built the roster the right way here, really. You know, they've gone out and spent good money in free agency. I think Reddick will probably be worth that money over time. Like you say, it depends how they use him. You saw at Arizona, it was scheme fit that kind of held him back. And then, like you say, they found a way to use him and get the productivity out of him. Eagles would obviously be sensible to use him the same way, but will they? It's not always the case. You don't know what you're getting. But yeah, I mean, that D line is scary. You know, you've got experience on there. You've got Fletcher Cox. You've got Hassan Reddick. You've got youth in there. You've got Jordan Davis. You have a lot of problems that you have to solve. Now, in terms of the off the edge guys, Reddick, Penei Sewell and Taylor Decker, I expect them with their draft capital, with how good they are. I expect them to be able to deal with him. You know, I have expectations for our offensive line this year. And I think for me, there are a few edge rushers in the NFL who can, one-on-one really trouble them. And Reddick ain't in that class for me. But, you've got threats everywhere and they can do all sorts to you. So, yeah, like I say, I'll give them props. They've built very well. It all depends on what their quarterback does, though, because, like I say, they were quite happy to get rid of him 5 months ago, and now he's the second coming. It feels like they're trying to talk themselves into him at this moment in time. And it's the same with us. If you stop him from playing, that offense falls like a deck of cards, like ours does without Goff. So you have opportunities on both sides here. They could just as soon as hit us with him than we can with them.
Right. I think at that point, maybe it might be good just to take a couple of minutes break while we have our guest come on, and then we'll resume in just a couple of moments with our guest, the British and Irish Eagles. We will see you in just a moment. Right. Okay. We're still live, obviously. Hi, Liam. How you doing?
Good, man. Good. Interesting to hear that Reddick take just as I joined. Looking forward to talking about that.
I thought you'd like that. I'm just going to go and get myself another drink, and then we'll start back off in about 90 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, Phil's going to join us as well, so he should be here in the next 2 minutes.
Cool. Okay, sounds good. I'll see you all in just a sec. You will still be live on the show, though, at the moment, so...
All right. I'll just be pouring red wine, that's all.
Sounds good to me.
No wrong with that.
How you doing, Anthony? All right?
I'm not bad. How are you?
Yeah, good. It was good to have Matthew and Steve on our podcast last night.
Yeah, they're both very knowledgeable about everything going on around here. They're really good to have on. So, yeah, we have a nice little varied group of people on our show, so it's nice.
Yeah, we're pretty varied on our show. I'd be the positive one for sure. And then we've got a fence sitter, Phil, who's going to join us in a second, and then Mick as more of a realist.
Yeah, me and Matt are kind of the Kool-Aid drinkers. So we're the positive two who always try and put a positive spin on things, and then Steve's more grounded and realistic, but he does sort of shift to our side. And then the others, both our Ryans and Martin, they're the ones who talk us down off these high perches. They're like, "Come on, lads, let's have some realism here." But you need those guys around, don't you? So
Well, I remember when we came onto your podcast, the live podcast during the draft, there was like 7 of you guys on.
Yeah, I think that there are 7 overall, but because 2 of the guys don't do anything during the off season, they sort of have a break away from it, and then
That's
we've
fair.
got another couple who are sort of rotational as well. So there's like 4 of us who do a lot of it, a couple who are rotational, and then 1 who does it as and when they can. So again, you kind of need that variation, really. It is nice to just mix it up a little bit. So
you got squad depth there. That's what I'm talking about.
yeah, when we started, we were like, can we find that many fans over here in the UK from the Lions? But apparently so. There's actually quite a few here, surprisingly. So it's nice.
You guys got loads of followers now. I mean, it's just me, Mick, and Phil. We kind of like to keep it that way, but we get guests on all the time.
Yeah, well, we want to do this more this year because it's the one thing we've not really. Obviously, we have all the pods on during the draft, but trying to organize everything, try to do the Thursdays, they're getting a bit stale. It is nice to have the guests on because at least we're not giving a Homer perspective on it here, so it's nice to have someone who can come on and put us right. So
I find it's good to get people from the US on. I mean, we've been lucky and actually quite successful. We've had Colleen Wolfe on our podcast.
Yeah,
we've had like 4 or 5 Eagles beat writers on.
Yeah,
and that's kind of cool because they keep you grounded as well.
Yeah, we've managed to get the full complement of beat writers on. I think there's one who's just started, who's new, that we've not got at yet, but we've got pretty much everyone else on so far, and we've got a few groups over in America as well. Other YouTubers and that who we get, so it's nice. Gives us, like I say, just makes it a little bit different. Means you freshen up a little bit. So, but yeah, that'll be interesting. It'll be interesting. I don't know how hopium based Matt was yesterday, but I'll make up for it if he wasn't.
I mean, so we had obviously we've got like a British and Irish Eagles WhatsApp chat with like 100 people in it, and everyone was comparing me to Matt. Like
yeah, I feel it. I got that impression from yesterday. How you doing, Phil?
I'm good, man. You guys all right?
Yeah, we're all doing good.
Long time no see.
Yeah, it has been at least 24 hours.
Exactly 24 hours, I think.
Yeah. Right. We are live now, but I'm going to kind of just intro it for the audio pod in the next few seconds, if that's cool.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Just to say, I know that Liam kind of heard it, but Phil, we've gone through a brief kind of off-season bit for you guys, draft picks, free agency stuff, whatever. So we've done the nuts and bolts, and now you guys can actually fill us in with the more interesting stuff to go through.
Hopefully.
Yeah, okay. Here we go. And we're back on the Royal the Lions UK podcast with a few guests, Liam O'Neill and Phil from the British and Irish Eagles and the Next Man Up podcast. Fellas, it's been a little while since the NFL draft, and if the guys who are watching, our following's increased a little bit since then, haven't seen you guys before, maybe just give a little intro about yourselves to kick us off.
Yeah, sure. I'll go ahead, Phil. That's all right. So, we're the British and Irish Eagles. You can find us at British Eagles on Twitter. But actually, we started as the Next Man Up podcast, which is a UK Eagles podcast before we merged with the British and Irish Eagles, and we pretty much do what you guys do. We talk about our birds from across the pond. We get some guests on from the other side of the pond and locally here as well. And people listening in might not know, but if anyone's in London this coming Sunday, we're going to be at Passyunk Avenue in London, Waterloo Leek Street for a UK watch along. So there'll be a lot of Eagles fans in Passyunk Avenue, Waterloo Leek Street. If any Lions fans out there are feeling brave and want to come and watch the game there. But I'm Liam, I host the podcast, and Phil Subs is the host and is on every podcast as well. And we love talking about our birds like you love talking about your Lions, and looking forward to this weekend.
What about you, Phil, as well? Just tell us a little bit about you.
I've not actually been following the Eagles as long as Liam. Literally after the Super Bowl, so you might argue that I'm a Glory supporter, but I promise you I'm not. I'm in the Royal Navy at the moment, and I was on the detachment with the Queen Elizabeth a few years ago, and it was the only NFL team I could manage to see in that length of time. So for fate cast me as an Eagles fan just after they won their first and only Super Bowl. So I've missed out on that year. So I have to relive it through the Americas game on Sky every once in a while to feel like I'm part of that tribe.
He's a Man United fan as well, guys. So you make your own judgments as to whether he's a glory seeker or not.
Oh, yeah. We don't talk about United on this podcast as much as we can.
Hey, I'm giving up watching them at the moment. See you guys, so feel privileged, yeah?
That's true.
Very privileged. There we go. So I kind of said to you guys off air, but we've kind of gone through the sort of ins and outs, the draft picks, the trades that you guys have had. How has the off-season been for you? Because there's a difference of opinion between the two of us in terms of how it's gone. I think Ant thinks there's been some good and bad points to it. I'm just kind of all over it, really, with how well I think you guys have done. Kind of high-level takeaways from your off-season so far?
Yeah, sure. So, Phil, I'll touch on the draft maybe, and then you can touch on, the last couple of months in the off-season. But historically, the Eagles fan base haven't been very enamored, shall we say, with Howie Roseman and how he conducts his drafts. And I think this year, for the first time in a while, I mean, decent draft last year, getting Devontae Smith in, that was a big scoop for us, especially with the trade that we made to jump ahead of the Giants. That was a particularly favorite moment of ours. And if you guys ever get a chance, anyone listening in, to go and look at find the meme of the Giants fan in his Giants room saying, "Leave us alone. Why won't you leave us alone?" You need to go and watch that because it's spectacular viewing, especially if you're in the NFC East like we are. And this year he's absolutely knocked it out of the park. I'll let Phil touch on the off-season signings, but in the draft, we were wrong with you when we drafted Jordan Davis live on your podcast.
Yes, yeah.
That was pretty cool, and he's a man mountain, and a lot of people, I think, before the draft and even post-draft, were saying he's only going to be on the field for 30 snaps a game. How impactful is he really going to be? Can he really get to the quarterback? Is he just going to take up two blockers instead? And the reality is he's more than anyone imagined he could even be. Like, he is. Everyone is being effusive about him in the Eagles. He is going to be an NFL star. I guarantee that. You can bookmark that right now. Cam Jurgens was a pickup that a few people were surprised about when he was picked up in the draft. He's basically Kelsey 2.0. Kelsey's like a fine wine. He's just gotten better with age. He was potentially our best player last year for the Eagles. And Cam Jurgens, again, there was like some skeptics out there because we were like, you can't really draft a 2.0. It doesn't work like that. There might be traits and trends with individuals, differences, etc. He literally is Kelsey 2.0. Like, he's doing exactly the same stuff in training, getting to the second and third level, blowing D backs away while the running back's still running through. He's getting that deep into coverage from the line. And then Nakobe Dean, I mean, possibly the steal of the draft in the third round, was touted to be a first-round draft pick pre-draft. And a lot of people were concerned about his injuries, and that's why his stock fell, and that's why he fell so low. And again, he's had a clean bill of health. There seems to be nothing wrong with him. He's probably not going to be our starting linebacker, because our linebackers have done so well in his Kazir White, who we picked up, has done a stellar job, and we already had our starting linebacker kind of sorted from last year. So he won't start as a linebacker this coming Sunday, but I mean, as the season goes on, he was the best defensive player on the best defense in college football history. So God knows how this guy fell so low. So in terms of the draft, I'll move on to Phil in a second to talk about the offseason pickups. Oh, I haven't even mentioned AJ Brown, which happened in the draft, right? Incredible pickup. Moved to Dahl for Hurts. Hurts' offensive weapons last year weren't amazing outside of Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert to an extent. Jalen Reagor, he's now gone. Quez Watkins still getting to learn the tail of the tape last year. He was kind of breaking out last year. And beyond that, he didn't really have much. You're going to see a different Jalen this year, but I'll stop talking there before I go off on a Jalen conversation. And well, if you've got any questions for me first on the draft, if not, I'll pass it over to Phil to talk about what's planned since then.
No, I think you've covered it all off. So Phil, why don't you take it?
Great.
Yeah, so like it doesn't. after the AJ Brown trade, which I think technically counts as an off-season acquisition, wasn't really a draft pick. So, and it started with that one on draft night with that sort of chaotic. Obviously, the Jordan Davis pick came in, and then it was shortly after that the AJ Brown trade sort of happened, because we obviously were expecting our second first round pick to come in, and then the chaos happened. It's all just kind of gone from there, and then sort of with the Hassan Reddick trade, Kazir White, as Liam's already mentioned, and then even a summer later as CJG. GJ
and Bradbury as well from the Giants at cornerback.
Yeah. So from A to Z quickly, it's sort of, there's been so many different trades, and considering the last couple of years when players like Ramsey, Von Miller, and that have been available, there's always been the natural kind of like, oh, Eagles clamoring fans on Twitter going, we should sign him, and how he never signs these players. And it just feels like this offseason, how he just seems to have turned a massive corner and decided to, and but not only that, he's been really smart about it. He hasn't gone out and just reached for a player that he desperately wants. He seems to just know everything about everyone that's available, and players like it. And he's also collected a lot of people who either have connections to Philly, connections to people already in the team. So there's been it's not just been like a random sporadic, I'll have him, he's available, and ram the square peg in the round hole. It's been a case of this, the initial thing has been that guy played with Hurts 3 years ago, or this guy's from Penn State, and this guy's spent a lot of time, went to college in Philly, or so on and so forth. So it just feels like he supplemented an exquisite draft, like blowing that out of the park, with just a lot of key signings. And it just seems like he had a plan maybe when the Wentz issue came up. And I remember the day that the trade for Wentz came through and how divided the fan base were, and to where we are now, sort of 18 months later, what we've got for essentially the Wentz trade, plus getting rid of Arthur-Whiteside for a couple of picks, getting rid of Rager for more potentially than what the Cowboys got for Amari Cooper.
Yeah,
it's just when you start listing it down on paper, and there's almost too much to mention in this short time. So I'll wrap it up pretty quickly. But it's just, so I think that's why sort of some fans maybe feel a little bit uneasy about the publicity that the Eagles are getting in terms of potential for the season. It's just because there is so many good moves there. It's hard not to sort of look at the team and go, that is a complete 180 from 18 months ago.
There's no weakness if you look at the team right now. There was before we got CJ Johnson, the safety, a couple of weeks ago. The safety was the glaring weakness in the Eagles team. And they've strengthened every single area they needed to do, and they've strengthened the depth areas as well as the starting areas. You can make the argument that Jalen Hurts is, still hasn't quite proven that he's the guy yet. I think he is. A lot of Eagles fans think he is. I heard at the end of the segment there, Anthony, saying that 5 months ago they were happy to get rid of him, and now he's the second coming. I don't believe that's true. I think if there was a quarterback out there like Russell Wilson, who is a perennial Pro Bowler, then I think any team would be mad to not try and get a quarterback like that. But I don't think the Eagles were going to move away from Jalen Hurts unless there was somebody out there of that caliber. And since then, he's only gone to improve his passing, his accuracy, his interceptions, his touchdowns, everything, his movement, his arm speed, his decisions, every single facet of his game. I know it's preseason, has improved from preseason last year. And look, the proof will be in the pudding when Eagles play. And if Jalen Hurts doesn't have a good year, the Eagles are still stacked to go and run it next year with a new quarterback in the new draft, or to package up their picks to go and get a veteran quarterback. But it's scary how good the Eagles seem at the moment, as Phil said, because we're better as underdogs. We're not good at being favorites.
And do you have a question at this point?
No, sorry, I missed a little bit, so I don't know where you're at. So you crack on.
Okay, so we've talked about Eagles kind of past. We're starting to talk about Eagles present at this point with Hurts, and I guess he's the kind of place to start. So took the reins from Wentz in 2020, which seems like such a long time ago now, but it really wasn't. And I'm looking through the stats thinking, he played 15 games in both seasons, but went from 148 passing attempts to 432 passing attempts, but his rushing attempts only doubled. Obviously, he played a lot more in 2021 than he did in 2020, even though he played in the same number of games. But The completion percentage went up almost a full 10 points. His rushing stayed very consistent, 5.6 yards a carry. So he's obviously still a massive threat on the ground. But I think there's a general feeling amongst the Eagles faithful that whether you're sold on Hurts or not, that his passing ability is improving, and maybe that's his biggest point against him kind of coming in and all throughout his career so far. Okay, he can do it with his legs, can he do it with his arm? Are you guys both on the same page with the fact that he is getting better?
Yeah, I think so.
Go on, Phil.
Yeah, no, I think it's clearly like the fundamental if or but when you're talking about Hurts, it's a case of we reckon he's going to be this good this season, but he needs to improve his passing. If he can improve the amount his stats passing wise in the season. And I think the feeling I get with Jalen Hurts is that he just has that persona and that personality, and the things he says all the right things, but it's not just saying the right things. You believe it as well. He comes out and he's saying like he's humble. He's not trying to justify what he has done. He's not trying to rest on his laurels. He knows what he's got to do, and he's prepared to do it. So I believe, for all intents and purposes, he's done everything he can possible to do that and to be ready for the season. But whether we see it, I feel confident that he will, and he's got the weapons to do it this season. So you can argue that this is literally everything's been set up for him now. So if he can't do it, if he can't improve this season, then there won't be any doubts or anybody saying that he wasn't given a chance.
It's make or break for Hurts this season. There's no doubt. No matter how high I'm on Hurts, it's make or break. If he doesn't do it this season, he's not going to be given another season at the Eagles. Might get a chance elsewhere. If he doesn't, the team is too stacked for them to not make a run at the Super Bowl in the next 2 to 3 years. So if Jalen isn't up to it, then Jalen will be gone at the end of the season. There is literally no doubt about that whatsoever. I don't think that'll be the case. Sorry, go on.
No, just a question on that point from the chat. Quirky Zerky in the Twitch chat is one of our subs. He's saying people need to give quarterbacks time to develop. Aaron Rodgers sat for 4 years. Brady came in and let his defense win for him to begin with. Breeze didn't become great until he got to New Orleans.
Yeah.
Do you think that it is you've kind of alluded to it already, that it's the fact that the team is ready now means that you can't afford to be patient? Is that what you're saying?
I think there's a couple of reasons why for Hurts. One of them I probably won't mention on this podcast. It's an own personal opinion of mine. But I think you look at Daniel Jones and you look at the time that Daniel Jones has been given at the Giants. And I know he was a first-round pick rather than a second-round pick, and he sucked way worse than Hurts is. I completely agree. I can't remember the name of the person who just said that, but I completely agree that I don't think even if the Eagles just miss out on the playoffs this year, just miss out, but Jalen looks good, I would give Jalen another year. Because this last year was only his first season as a starter. He played 4 games in 2020 when he took over for Wentz. So I would keep him, but I just think the narrative in Philadelphia, the fan base and the city of Philadelphia, the noise will be so loud and big for him to not. It will be nigh impossible for him to have another year. Harry Roseman as a GM. Sorry, Phil. Harry Roseman as a GM, knowing his team, he's very happy to just get rid of guys who doesn't think they're performing. So he's less likely to invest that long time in a quarterback in these days. And the third point is the one I've already mentioned, is that the team is ready, and it would be silly for them not. If they have a chance, I think it's also, just to continue, I think it's also the opportunity to move on from Hurts at the end of this year is so big, because we have the 2 first-round picks and the future first-round picks. We have draft capital. We will have cap space. We have players to trade. There's an amazing draft class of quarterback, and there potentially will be some veterans who are available. So there's probably like 3 or 4 reasons I've given you there, but I still agree with the listener, and that is, I think Hurts should be given more time to develop than what would be just over 2 years.
It's important to note that how young Hurts still is in comparison to Wentz when he came into the league and how long he's been in the league for. It's a case of you have to remember that he's in his 3rd season. But I mean, as in this is since the draft, it's his 3rd season in the league. It will be, and he's only 23. So in theory, we should be giving him way more chance. But I think he's old above his years. He's so much more mature than what you'd expect for 23-year-olds. I know. But that being said, like Liam said, the team is in a position now where if there's not enough there, you can't waste any more time with the team that they've assembled right now and hope that he becomes the guy that you want him to be. I think they just don't have that luxury, and that's where the position they are. And I think Hertz gets that. Like I said, he's a mature guy, and he's well aware of the situation. I think there's a complete honesty between him and Harry Roseman. He's probably said, "Give me all the chances I need. If I don't do it, then when you ship me out, I will go quietly into the night."
I believe that as well. Yeah.
I think it feels like Hertz is exactly like Goff here. I think he's a confidence quarterback. I think when things are going well, you obviously see him play really well. He can make all the throws. He can do what he needs to. But when things aren't going well, that offense can collapse around him, just like it can with Goff here. And like you say, if you've got a Super Bowl window open, maybe you can't afford to have the confidence quarterback back there. You want a guy who can rebound quicker, will be able to deal with it. I think that's probably what they'll look for this year, I guess. Can he handle the expectations of being a favourite in a lot of games because your team's really good in that? And if you can't, then I think you probably might be justified in going, right, we need someone who can deal with this because, like you say, you've got the team to go all the way, maybe.
Yeah,
Go on.
like Liam said, like the teams position themselves with the draft picks for next year. You're not going to be able to get that situation again next year. So it is just all very set up to be sort of like a climax at the end of the season, one way or another.
Yeah. I just on your point, Anthony, about the confidence thing. I'm not sure I entirely agree. Hertz has this incredible ability just to be calm under any sort of pressure. There was an occasion during the game last year where part of the stadium collapsed in the tunnel, and everyone went mental, and like Hertz just like literally calmly as it was happening, moved someone out of the way and sidestepped and then went to pick people up as if nothing had happened, and everyone around him was just going crazy. Google it if you haven't seen it already. His persona doesn't scream to me if it's going badly, it's going to collapse all around. And the Tampa game was a bad game for everybody in the playoffs last year. I just think it's going to be a case of, is Jalen good enough or not? I think it's as simple as that. I think if Jalen has the arm that people hope he has, he can't make every throw in the field. Of course he's not. He's not Matt Stafford. He's not that caliber of throwing quarterback. But if he can be serviceable as a passing quarterback with the threat he has in his legs as well, then the Eagles have a chance like the Ravens do.
Got a few things to kind of touch on here, and I know we've kind of spent a long time on this topic, so I'm just going to move it quickly on.
Go for it. Go for it.
So we've talked about kind of off-season in terms of acquisitions, but let's just touch on training camp a little bit. We've obviously heard that Jordan Davis before has kind of had a monster start. So's Cam Jurgens, I kind of alluded to that before you guys came on. Is there anyone, or a few players perhaps, who are maybe having a really good camp that we perhaps aren't aware of? Maybe they're a lower round pick or a UDFA, or I think you guys kind of asked us the same sort of question yesterday, but like someone under the radar who might surprise us on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few players. I mean, there's a couple of players that are on your radar who you haven't mentioned. AJ Brown has had a ridiculous camp. Like, he's been an absolute monster. And I know he's obviously someone you guys know about. Quez Watkins has had a good camp. He's our third string wide receiver. Zach Pascal, our fourth wide receiver, picked up off the Colts, has surpassed everyone's expectations of how good he would be since he arrived. Sirianni obviously knew him from his time when he was at the Colts. I was very skeptical when we brought Pascal, and I didn't think he was going to be able to do much, but he could be pushing Watkins for wide receiver 3 slot pretty easily. There's a quarterback called Zach McPherson, he'll probably be like first change for the quarterbacks behind Slay, Bradbury, and Maddox. And he was a 4th round pick, I think, last year in last year's draft. And he's turned up pretty well on tape. There's quite a lot of depth players who I think will make an impact in the season, who you're probably not going to need to worry about this coming Sunday, who we've seen make quite a lot of strides. Trying to think if there's anyone else who really stands out. Phil?
Well, for me, I mean, I don't know if it's like, again, because of the whole Kelsey situation, like Cam Jurgens had an absolute monster camp, and to the point at which I know no one was worried about whether Kelsey was starting week 1. He is, and that's brilliant. But now we know we've got this almost feels like ready-made guy ready to come in. He's had a monster camp as well. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen to him. But obviously that's much further down the line. The wide receiver core-wise, you've got sort of Britton Covey and Dean Cain, who are not necessarily going to be on your radar much until, touch wood.
One of them
Injuries
might
start
get
going.
activated. We've only got 4 wide receivers on our squad going into the weekend, and I would not be surprised if one of those players that Phil just mentioned, Phil, gets activated for Sunday.
Yeah, one of them will most likely get activated because they were waived for the Rager situation. So Rager was kept traded, and now there's a space ready for him to be called up. We don't know which one. I reckon probably Britton Covey is going to be the one called up. So
they had very good camps, both of them. Like really good camps, surprising good camps.
And the hurdler Devon Allen, I'm excited to see if he ever gets a proper chance in the NFL, but probably not.
Okay.
I think it might not be on your radar. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but Quez Watkins is going to be returning punts and kickoffs this coming Sunday, and he is like an absolute speed machine. Like he reckons he's the fastest in the league. He's not, right? He says he's not, but he is very, very, very quick. And given we had Jalen Reagor returning punts for the last year and a half, I think a lot of Eagles fans are really excited to see what Quez Watkins can do with the ball when he receives it in his hands. Please God, he catches it for us anyway.
Go up against one of the better special teams from last year. It's one of the few things that we can do well. So it's going to be a good test for him, I think. Okay, let's talk about season expectations before talking about Sunday. So we kind of talked yesterday about this, and it's kind of funny to have the conversation again because I know pretty much exactly what you guys are going to say. But where do you think you guys are going to end up when it's all said and done this year? Phil, let's kick off with you.
I think me and Liam are fairly similar in where we think the Eagles are going to rest record wise. As for the expectations, I think similar to what you guys are saying for the Lions and what your expectations were. Sort of improvement is sort of key over anything. As long as you're better than you were last season, that's important. And that's what I said at the start of last season. And we obviously only had to improve on a 4-11-1, but we massively improved on that. So next time it would be getting to the playoffs again and winning a game. So I think for me, winning at least a playoff game, I'm not buying so much into the Super Bowl hype that seems to be rumbling on at the moment, because I think that's more of a next season kind of thing. If everything goes well this season, that's where I'll be looking next season. But let's just see how all the words on the paper translate onto the field for me. So I think about one playoff win would be considered a success for me.
So I've got 5 words I just wrote down when you asked that question while Phil was talking, and that is off-season acquisitions, a better offense than we had last year in terms of options for Jalen to throw to, a much better defense all around, and second-year improvements for Sirianni, Gannon, and Hurts. And we were 9-8 last year. For me, it's 12-5, 11-6 for the regular season. I think anything less than 11-6 and a playoff win, if we do make it 10-7, we should. Then we're going to be into the conversations around, is Jalen the guy? Is he not the guy? Again, because the team is so stacked. So, and I've, we went into last season, nowhere near those expectations. So it shows what they've done in the recent months.
Huge transformation. I'm sure you guys remember this, but I did say they're my favourites for the NFC this year. I'm sure Phil hates that, but it just feels like that this is a team on the up, that everything's going for them, and it kind of lives and dies by Hurts' performance. We kind of know that with quarterbacks. It's such a trope. Oh yeah, they'll do well if the quarterback does well, but the rest of the roster just looks ready to go. And it's always been known that the Eagles, in terms of the trenches, are going to try and bully you on both sides of the ball. It's the model that we're going after, so we know it very, very well. But you've kind of retained that and improved everywhere else. So I know a lot of guys are kind of pulling for you as a second team. Quirky Zerky is saying kind of that he's supported you guys since the McNabb days and actually thinks the Cowboys are getting worse. So
we love Zerky Quirky. We love you, buddy.
For the East, I think you guys should do that. I mean, just Eagles match up so well with the Cowboys. I can't see the Cowboys taking a game off you this year. I really can't. But, Ant, do you have any thoughts on the season expectations for the Eagles and where you think they might go?
No, as the guys said, they know and see this team every day, just like we do with the Lions. So there's not really a lot you can say outside of that. Like I was saying, I think the roster construction, how he's done, is really good. Like you say, there are very few obvious weaknesses in that team, and And in the trenches, you're probably just about as strong as you can get, really. The offensive line is even better than ours. The defensive line has that right mixture of experience and youth in there. You've got Jordan Davis learning from Fletcher Cox right next to him. You've got Hassan Reddick on the edge. He's a good player. He's a really good player. So, and they're not in the greatest division at the minute. Not throwing shade at the division, but the Cowboys are struggling. The Commodores are struggling. I call them the Commodores, not the Commanders.
I don't know for promotion. Yeah.
I just call them the Commodores. So, strength of schedule in the league alone should say that there's probably 5-6 wins maybe to be had in there. And I know you've got some of the other poorer teams on the schedule. I think you're playing the Panthers, aren't you? I think you've got one of the New York sides in there. They're both pretty bad at the minute. So I expect them probably to be in double-digit wins if they get it going this year. Just depends on how Hurts does. And it's the same. It's the same with us and Goff. Goff will be the difference between 2 wins for us and 7 or 8 wins for us. I think Hurts will probably be the difference for them as to how he can do. But you can't knock the job that the GM's done building that roster. It is a very good roster.
Just on the Lions for a second, I feel very good about Goff this year. Just so you guys, I know we talked a lot about the Eagles. I rate Goff way more than most people I think in the league do outside of Lions fans. I think he's got more ability than people give him credit for, and with the right offensive line in front of him, which he has. And the better attacking wide receivers, which he has. I think the Lions are my outside shot to get into the playoffs this year. Of any team who aren't expected to get in, Lions are my outside shot to do it.
We literally live or die by our quarterback, though. It is all. If he goes down, then we're screwed. And we're also, you've got a good amount of experience in your team. We are relying on it. We know we've got a lot of talented youngsters on our side. We know that. It's just, can they perform in unison together? If they can, then yes, you're right. We can make an outside burst for that playoffs. But yeah, we're going in the right direction. We're behind where you guys are at the minute. So it's not unfair to say that.
And I know that you've got to pop off now, so is there any takes that you have on the game that you want to get in just before you go?
All I want to say is, I just hope we compete in this game. I know that I said I expect our offensive line to be able to deal with some of the guys on that defensive line. I still believe in that. I still think we have a top 5 O-line. I expect that investment to pay off. We have 3 first-round picks, a third-round pick, and technically a guard we were paying $10 million a year to before he got injured, but still, I expect them to be able to deal with the best in the league, and I would hope that they will put in a good show, just like I hope our young D-line will put in a good show against them. But I know the odds of us winning are very short, and it's going to rely on a lot going right for us and a lot going wrong for them. But I just want it to be competitive, not like last year, because last year was a blowout and we can't afford that again. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great test for us. Certainly, it's going to show where we're at this season. We can compete with you with the schedule we've got. I've got a lot more confidence we can make a wild card spot this year. So I'm looking forward to it. Hope guys have a great weekend. Like I say, hope you do well this season. You've gone around it the right way, and hopefully Hurts and Sirianni do well in year 2 for you, and it all goes good. So yeah.
Thanks, Anthony.
Thanks ever so much. Cheers.
So let's move on and talk about the game then in a bit more detail. You guys have kind of alluded to the fact that you don't really feel like you have too many weaknesses, but a lot of strengths. But let's maybe try and give Lions fans a little bit of hope. If you if you had to pick out some of the places where you were perhaps weaker rather than weak, where would you highlight as potential places that we could try and exploit?
I mean, I've got one straight off the bat, Phil, if that's all right. I think our secondary, even with the acquisitions of Bradbury, even with the acquisitions of CJ Johnson, is our weakest point. Specifically, our depth at secondary. As soon as one person goes down at safety or a cornerback, then there's a big drop off in talent until you get to the next lot of guys. So I think secondary is far and away our weakest point, because on the offensive line and the defensive line, we're absolutely stacked, not just on first-team players, but on people who can come in and fill in for those positions. The edge positions and the linebacker positions they're completely different. We've never invested in linebackers. I know you were saying, Matthew, yesterday that you guys haven't really invested in that too much over the years either, and we certainly haven't. So to see that investment now is really nice because we've been crying out for that investment for years. And that's really all I've got, to be honest with you, because tight end, you got Dallas Goedert, you got AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Watkins, Pascal at wide receiver. Jalen Hurts, if he goes down, sure, we're in a pickle. I'm not big on Gardner Minshew, but even he's a decent backup quarterback who's serviceable. I don't know, Phil, am I missing anything out here? Is it just a second?
No, it is pretty much it, and that's where it all comes from. Is that even in the secondary, up until a couple of weeks ago, we were like, safety is a serious concern.
Yeah, safety's big.
And then he's made some moves there as well. It's not resolved the issue 100%. Like the depth isn't quite there, but he's made an improvement. It just feels like before, Howie always used to think he was the smartest guy in the room, and it feels like he's had one of those epiphanies where he's realised like the people around him actually have something to contribute, and so you need to invest in these areas as well, otherwise it won't work. And he just seems to have applied that Howie magic to he's sprinkled a little bit on every part of the team, and there's just
To be fair though, Phil, and to give the Lions fans some positivity around it, like on top of the points I've just made about the secondary depth problems, there's a chance that CJ Johnson doesn't play on Sunday. The new safety that there's a chance that he's not up to speed on the playbook. There's a chance that he's not up to speed fitness-wise, having sat out a few training camps with the Saints. So there's a chance that we are very light still at safety. Marcus Epps, people are bigging him up as having a big year at safety this year, but I'm not buying that completely. I think on Good Morning Football the other day, he was in the top 5 DBs to look out for, who you don't really talk about. I'm not buying that. So if CJ Johnson doesn't start and Epps starts, and then with the depth we have behind Epps, the safety could be a serious concern on Sunday.
So I know that Ant just left, but he was a big fan of Reed Blankenship. But he's also a fan of Anthony Harris, who you guys let go. What's the story with him? Why did he end up leaving?
Basically, because of the CJ Johnson trade. There's no two ways about it. Reed Blankenship, it's interesting. We actually talked about this on the podcast after you guys left last night about Anthony Harris and him going and what that means. Or was before, I can't remember either way. And he's 30 years old, Anthony Harris. So he's not a young buck safety. We signed him on a 1-year contract last year, and we were looking to sign him again this year. Obviously, I think we had signed him, but obviously we let him go. He was okay. I mean, he wasn't as good as some of his prior years. I think he might have been at the Vikings before he was at the Eagles.
Yeah.
And he had like an incredible season, and he kind of fell off the cliff a little bit. And then he came to the Eagles, and he was okay, but he wasn't spectacular. So I think, and he wasn't on much money. So I think the Eagles were fairly happy just to let him go and upgrade that CJ Johnson with that deal. And I think Reed Blankenship you mentioned is another name that I think some of our listeners and some of wider Eagles listeners to other podcasts, we're probably going to hear a little bit more about as the season goes on, because he had a big camp, and no one was expecting it. To be clear, no one was expecting the camp he had, but he had a big camp, and he is another reason why they would have let Harris go, because they see the upside in him. He's younger, he's got time to develop. Harris is a bit older, on the decline. I think that's probably where the Eagles made the decision: the trade, and then the Blankenship deal.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So trying to touch on weaknesses kind of failed a little bit. Let's talk about strengths. Knowing the Lions as you do now, after we've kind of talked a little bit, where do you think that you could really hurt us? Who's going to do the business?
It's funny you say that, because we have the insight of having you tell us where your weaknesses were last night. So that kind of helps us a little bit in our answer here. I think the Eagles can play a multitude of different games. And the good thing about Sirianni is he's very, very good at adapting to situations, in-game situations and in-season situations. We saw that last year before the Lions game, where he switched to adopt a heavy running game, which led to obviously the result that we all know about, but we'll mention. It's like Voldemort's name. So I think the Eagles are strong. The Eagles are strong in the trenches, but the Lions are strong in the trenches. So we're at the offensive line for sure. I know.
Yeah, but so Ragnow did not practice today, is trending towards being out as
Oh, I did
well.
not know
So
that.
yeah,
Okay.
so Ragnow and Vaitai potentially out means that we are backing up at centre and at maybe
Okay.
left or right guard, depending on who swings where. But it's not
Right.
confirmed yet. He might still come back. There's time, but it's never good when you don't practice on a Thursday. So
So that's going to change the outlook of where the Eagles go this Sunday for sure. You're going to see the offensive line moving and pushing the defensive line of the Lions, and you're going to see some holes that Miles Sanders will probably exploit down the middle. Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott. That's likely to happen, or at the guard center position if that really has happened today. And they have the ability to do that with how powerful the offensive line is. So I would say start with the run game and then exploit in the passing game when they're stacking up against the run game. I think that's probably the tactic that Sirianni will go with. But who knows with Sirianni? He's a surprise package when he turns up every week.
For me, I think it's going to sound really patronising, but I promise it isn't. It's kind of everywhere, and but what I mean by that is, no, but what I mean by that is not everywhere all the time. I mean, like, because we are on the attacking front, we've got so much depth and so many options. The difficulty is going to be in sort of like people are saying Smith's going to do well this season because AJ Brown's always going to be covered. You got Dallas Goddard, you got the running game. It's like if you're a defensive coach going up against that, that's going to give you a headache in your game plan and especially if you're a little bit weakened, trying to figure out which hole to plug first is going to be the difficulty for you. So I'm kind of hoping like everywhere means that kind of like on the coaching side of things, it's just going to be a little bit too much to sort of master everywhere. You're going to have to pick the worst area and just hope that the backup area just isn't as good as we hope it is.
Do not be surprised if the first play of the game is a Hurts bomb. There's going to be a statement made by Sirianni, by Hurts. Do not be surprised if the first snap that Hurts takes is a bomb to either AJ Brown or Quez Watkins. I would not be surprised to see that happen. Here, miss, first go, let's go for it. Boom, statement made, or goes incomplete. Switch to a run game, low check downs. I think you'll see a lot of check downs. I think you'll see a lot of just over the top, over the middle, some screen plays, running plays. I don't think we're going to see loads and loads of passing attempts by Hurts this weekend because the Eagles will want to get into their stride in the season. But I would not be surprised if there's a bomb first up. So watch out for that.
I know that feeling. We've tried that tactic a few times. It's a boom or bust play. It doesn't always go incomplete. It sometimes gets picked off. And I mean, Amani Oruwariye came third in interceptions last year, and Okuda on the comeback trail looks like he's finally fit and firing on all cylinders. So take that on at your peril. We're going to struggle against speed, so I do think that Watkins actually is the one to watch in this game potentially. Any thoughts? So we talked about your secondary room, perhaps in the terms of the backups potentially being an issue, but with these starters, are you seeing any problems perhaps taking care of some of our guys on the outside with DJ Chark and Josh Reynolds and Amon-Ra St. Brown obviously really broke out towards the end of last year, even as a rookie, and DeAndre Swift in the passing game, as well as... So we've mentioned our offensive line, and while we might be taking some backups with us, the run game is where it's going to thrive, and our backups are better there than in pass protection. How's your line going to stack up against a run game that might be top 10, top 15 in the league? I mean, you guys are good in the trenches, but is that going to translate? Your linebackers haven't been good historically, but like you say, you have invested there. So there are weapons there, but do you think you can deal with all of those things much like we potentially are going to struggle dealing with all of your things?
No, I don't think we could deal with all of those things. As I said, I'm big on the Lions this year, and I think your offense is in a really good shape. I feel like the best players at our positions are going to be able to cope with the best players at your positions in terms of the wide receiver and the cornerback for sure. I fancy Amon-Ra Brown is going to be your wide receiver one this year, I'm assuming.
Well, in terms of receptions, I suspect he'll probably be up there. The thing is, I think Hockenson might come a bit back into it, because they both play the kind of slot wide receiver type position when he's detached from the line. That might eat into Amon-Ra's receptions a little bit. We'll see. I mean, the fact that we've got Shark and Reynolds will also eat into that, because before it was just checking down, and so that's going to play into your slot wide receiver quite nicely. So we'll see.
Tight ends have blitzed us historically. Good tight ends have destroyed us over the last couple of years. We have made improvements at the linebacker position. Here's the way I see it. The Eagles historically haven't been as good against the run. Jordan Davis, when he plays, is going to help that because he's going to be eating up blockers. he can take 2 blockers on. That's how big this guy is. So I can see Swift having a good game. Even with that in mind, I can see Swift having a good game in the passing game. Because Gannon is so sporadic in his defensive plays when it comes to rushing and it comes to dropping off into coverage for his linebackers and his edge players. So I think the DeAndre Swift will have a good game. I think your second and third wide receivers, Shark and Reynolds, will have a better game than whoever Slay is marking.
I think it will be the check down passes to Swift that will probably be any area which I'm not confident in going on our preseason games, especially the one against the Browns. Their backup quarterback had great joy in just checking down to his left and right, and it was our backup secondaries and then linebackers dealing with it. But it just felt like once someone like Swift gets the ball in his hands and starts running, because Jonathan Gannon last season didn't really blitz much. He stood off too much. It's a case of it was a bit indecisive in the defensive setup. And it's a case of, so when it came to those sort of plays, you had a good 5 yards to build up your speed and smash through and get that first down or whatever. I think maybe that's probably a good point, Liam, that sort of area is going to be, if they've improved that area, which I'm hoping they have, because there's a lot of talk around Jonathan Gannon being one of the other biggest weaknesses on our team, and I
could have said that when you asked us what our weaknesses are. Our weaknesses potentially is our defensive coordinator.
Yeah, I'm quietly confident that Gannon's going to be completely different this year. Liam and Mick don't necessarily agree with me, but the reason is, it's a case of my nan could probably do a better job at defensive coordinator with the defense that has been recruited this season, and she's no longer with us. So it's a case of
that's why it's such a potential weakness for us. We can tell you how good all the acquisitions you've made in the offseason on defense is. You can have all the best players in the world. If you don't line them up right, don't give them the right plays, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, and I'm turning on my own point by saying that anyone could do better with that team, but I believe that he was limited last season as much as he wasn't good enough. And I think he'll have had a say in the players that have been recruited. He will have had a hand in that. And I believe that that's going to have to be, there's going to be a factor in the case of, okay, we've got you the players, but like Jalen Hurts in the pocket, it's a case of, here you go, here's your wide receiver core that you need. Here's your defensive players that you wanted or that you like the look of. Now go do what you need to do with them. And if he doesn't, then it'll be his last season as well.
You could see Sirianni, Jonathan Gannon, and Jalen Hurts all either be lauded as unbelievable defensive coordinators, head coaches, and quarterbacks, or all get the chop at the end of the season.
Do you think Sirianni potentially could get the chop if you underperform this
year? He's less
really?
likely out of the three of them. He's less likely out of three of them to get the chop for sure. But he's the head coach, and this team is stacked. If they don't make the playoffs, and if they do worse than that, yeah, sure.
Fair enough. All right, we've kind of given everything a pretty good going over, apart from actually giving a prediction. So why don't you guys, Liam, why don't you kick us off with how you think this one's going to go?
I think it's going to go tighter than people think. We did our predictions on the podcast last night, and Mick and Phil had us in the mid to high 30s against teens. For you guys, I have it around 28-23, 28-22 to the Eagles. I think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be as. I think it's going to be closer than people think.
Yeah, Liam's right. I'm a little bit more confident just because I feel like it's game one. There's a lot of stuff for both teams on paper, and it's a question of how much of each one has more of an impact. Is your sort of recent draft picks? Hutchinson, is he going to have that monster game? Is he really going to peg Hurts back? Or is the offense that the Eagles got just going to be too much for your sort of fledgling defense? I think the latter, personally, because I'm biased. But I think generally, I think I went last night, I'm trying to think off the top of my head what I went for last night. I think it was about 35-17 to the Eagles, I think you'll get something on us, but I'm hoping that we get a strong enough start that it'll just be sort of keeping you at arm's length.
Can I just say, Matthew, that if the Lions beat the Eagles this weekend, please feel free to set up a podcast on Monday and just berate us for everything we've said on this podcast. We'll hang the white flag up. We'll wear Lions tops, whatever you want.
I love the sound of it. I mean, I hesitate to call it maybe because of all the injuries we've now started to have in the last couple of days. I really did want to call it a trap game yesterday, just because I think the kind of thing about this Lions team is that it is plucky. It does compete where it really shouldn't. And also, I think Dan Campbell knows when he's outmatched and needs to roll the dice a bit. So you maybe saw in the Rams game last year, no one expected us to win. I think we were 15-point underdogs going into that game, and we did 2 fake punts and all of this. So like, kind of when you got no chance, why not try absolutely everything and throw the kitchen sink at it? And so that sort of self-awareness lends it quite well to actually winning some games that you really shouldn't. And in this game, I do think we are overmatched, potentially, with a side that is just gunning for bigger things than we are. But you're facing a Ford Field that is sold out for the first time in a non-Thanksgiving game since 2017 or something. Like, it is a big... there's big expectations, Hard Knocks driven, but sometimes, somewhat Dan Campbell driven as well, and Hutchinson being the hometown hero. It's going to be louder than we've seen for some time in there. So the crowd may play a small part in this too. We'll see. I did give it a kind of 10-point loss, I think, on the show yesterday. But with Ragnar's news, I'm getting a bit more pessimistic, actually. So I'm
more pessimistic now with all this talk
I know.
The stadium noise and
I kind of anticipate some sort of like 35-21 sort of game. It's one of those where, I mean, it depends how often the teams actually run the ball, because we're going to look to establish a run, you're going to look to establish a run. That kind of lends itself to a low-scoring game. So it could well be an 8-point game on the basis that there's 4 15-minute drives. I don't know. It could happen. No idea. But it's certainly going to be an exciting game. I cannot wait for the season to start. And maybe just briefly, game 1 tonight, Rams-Bills. Who are you thinking is going to win that one too?
Oh, Phil, you go first. I'll go off the back of you.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think it's got to be the Bills. I think this is their season. Rams have Stafford's coming off an injury. I know he's back, but I think it's such a good game to just have the start. That's what I mean. I'm staying up for it, mostly because I've got a 3.5-week-old. So I'm banking on being up. And I'm looking forward to watching it. But I think the Bills will just shade it. I think they have to, if they want to lay out a marker for the Super Bowl run this season that they so desperately need. I think it'll be just them. I can't give you a prediction because I haven't really thought about it that hardly. But
I'm so jealous that you're staying up to watch it. I've got work in the morning, so I'll have to watch it tomorrow. I think the Rams are going to win. I like the Rams. I like the Rams. I picked the Rams for the Super Bowl last year, early in the season. I like everything they've done. Whatever you want to say about Sean McVay, personality-wise, he's an incredible head coach. Cooper Kupp has been one of my favorite players in the league for a long time now, as has Donald. Love both of them. I think Allen Robinson is going to be absolutely lit this year with the coverage on Cooper Kupp. I think he's going to do so much damage, and he's one of the most underrated wide receivers in the league, and has been for some time now. I read today actually on the Eagles Twitter that Eagles were deep in talks with getting Allen Robinson this offseason. And the Rams held off until Stafford could phone him and convince him not to go to the Eagles. And that's what happened, apparently. I only found out a couple of hours ago. I think the Rams are going to win. I love Josh Allen. I just don't think Josh Allen has anywhere near the threats and the passing threats that Stafford does. I think, Rams for me.
I mean,
you got a lot of good passing
Gabe
targets.
Davis and Stephon Diggs and Knox.
Gabe Davis had a really good playoff game where the safety was injured and he ran down the middle and
he had a great season though all the way through. He was very reliable, kind of came from nowhere. But I remember him. I love watching Red Zone if my team aren't playing at 6. It seemed to be him popping up every single time, and I was like, I got Stephon Diggs in my fantasy team. The Bills are popping up. I'm sure he scored a touchdown, but no, every single bloody time it was Gabe Davis. Anyway. Thanks for touching on that, and thanks for coming on the show and chatting about the Eagles, and to see you guys again. Good luck for Sunday, not too much, but and good luck for the rest of the season. The guys in the chat have absolutely loved it, so I hope to see you again. Draft time. We'll see you at draft time.
Yeah,
We
we'll be
might
here
even
next
see
year.
we might even see in the playoffs. Who knows?
Oh, fingers
Oh.
crossed. We'll see. Good luck and see you soon.
Cheers,
Thanks,
guys.
Matthew. Cheers, guys.
Bye.
All right. Thank you to the British and Irish Eagles for that. And thanks to Ant, who I believe now is talking with Micro Mike on his channel. So if you want to go and have a listen to some more Lions content, if you are listening along live, I do urge you to go and listen to them now. Our next episode on the main podcast is going to be Monday, September the 12th. It's the Eagles at the Lions review show. On Sunday, I probably will do a live stream by myself for the first 45 minutes or so, and then Ant's going to join me. So if you want to have some company during the game, please do come and join me for that. As Ant said, they did the college football podcast yesterday, so if you want to have a listen to how week 1 went in college football and preview week 2, then do go ahead and listen to that one, available on YouTube and Twitch for you, as well as the audio podcast very, very shortly. Really interesting game actually coming up in college football, not tomorrow, Saturday, where you have 2 potential new Lions quarterbacks coming out in the draft in Florida and Kentucky. Our socials, don't forget us on Roar the Lions UK on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, in the group Detroit Lions Fans UK 1 Pride Worldwide on Facebook. On the web, our articles at roarthelionsuk.com. We have Ash Soden doing an article previewing this game. If you want to have a bit of a more Kool-Aid driven look at what might happen in this game, and maybe someone predicting a Lions victory, then you want to go and check that out on roarthelionsuk.com. Please do subscribe to the show and rate us 5 stars if you can. We'd be really appreciative of anything you can do to help us out there. Do comment below on the YouTube as well if you have any thoughts about how Hard Knocks finished, if you have any thoughts on how this game might go, any predictions you want to throw in there, and we will see you really soon. But for now, let's go Lions, one pride.